This is a collection of unknown parasites, living in dark, underground caves, cut off from the world. Although their vision is severely degraded, their hearing and touch are exceptionally sharp. Initially thought to be an ancient creature evolved, it turns out these are humans trapped on Earth, evolved after being infected by unknown parasites from consuming local geology's life forms. It all started 30 years ago, in a desolate valley corner, where an ancient, dilapidated church stood. That day, the church saw its first light in many years, discovered by an expedition team. After some exploration, it was found that a dark, moss-covered corner had a secret door leading underground. The underground pillars were carved with strange creatures, and the ground was covered with unidentifiable creature bones, making it exceptionally eerie. Soon, the team reached the underground center where a passage seemed to be sealed. Perhaps there was an unspeakable secret below. One of the team members, with a tattoo on his arm, started the blasting, which also foreshadowed future events. After the successful blasting, there indeed was a different world below, and amid the excitement, the ground suddenly burst open, causing everyone to fall in. The blasting also caused a landslide, burying the entire church under boulders. The expedition team was completely trapped in the cave. Their only way out was to go deeper in search of another passage. What awaited them was beyond their comprehension. Fast forward 30 years, a scientific research team discovered the ruins of the church, and beneath the boulders, they found the cave. Preliminary judgments suggested there might be a different world below, of great scientific value, but they dared not go down rashly. Paleontologist Nikolai contacted a top-notch exploration team. This team had returned unscathed from many dangerous places before. Their strength was not to be underestimated. Instrumental analysis initially suggested that 300 feet below the cave entrance was a vast space. Not an overstatement to call it an underground city. Its formation was ancient, and the exact time couldn't be determined. They would have to stay inside for at least half a month, potentially facing the most dangerous secret realm they've ever encountered. This news did not bring worry but excitement instead. After a night of preparation, they began their journey. The initial scenery of the cave was beautiful, but soon they would be dominated by fear. Setting up lighting equipment, a member named Briggs went ahead to explore. The underground city was below this pool, consisting of multiple caves. Briggs, tied with a net rope and cable for safety and real-time image transmission, moved towards the first cave underwater. Hours later, the team above received images from Briggs, showing he had reached the land underwater and completed the layout of the cave. Knowing they had successfully taken the first step, suddenly, an unknown creature appeared from the cave. It turned out to be a false alarm. The creature, captured by Briggs, was preliminarily identified as a mutated mole. Before they could examine it further, the transmission was suddenly cut off, as if something terrifying had happened. The team didn't panic, guessing the line might have been bitten through, but they didn't rule out an accident. Captain Jack immediately led all team members towards the cave, and everything went smoothly. They quickly reached the cave where Briggs was located, and soon Briggs appeared, unharmed. The cable had malfunctioned for some unknown reason and couldn't transmit data. He had no choice but to explore alone and even found a pair of shoes, suggesting they weren't the first humans to come here. Two team members responsible for repairing the cable found the fault point, as if something had knotted through, leaving someone to repair it. Meanwhile, another member, Strode, went to investigate something he found in the water. He came to another cave and found a trail of blood, a mutated mole that had been gnawed on, clearly attacked by another creature. Suddenly, something flashed by him, startling him. Then, a fierce-looking monster swooped down from above and dragged him into the water. He struggled desperately, trying to use his propeller to escape, but was dragged away by the monster just as he activated it. Tyler, who was repairing the cable, heard his teammates scream and hurriedly dived to check. But at that moment, Strode's propeller hit the rock wall, causing a violent explosion that pushed the water back, propelling Tyler back to the first cave. Everyone was asking him what was going on, but Tyler was just as confused until the accident happened to Strode. Jack immediately took his teammates to check, only to find that the explosion had blocked the way with a huge boulder. The way back was also constantly blocked by rolling boulders. It seemed that Strode's chances were slim, and continuing the search would put everyone in danger. They quickly returned to the first cave, only to find their way back blocked. Team leader Jack decided to ascend into the cave to look for another exit, otherwise, they were sure to die there. Biologist Catherine opposed, saying that Strode was obviously attacked by a creature, indicating a food chain ecosystem here. Going deeper might encounter great terror. Fellow biologist Nikolai agreed, saying the safest course of action was to stay put and wait for rescue. Jack argued that waiting for rescue without being able to send out a signal was not wise. He was confident in his ability to lead everyone out. So, he let everyone rest while he and his most trusted top went ahead to scout. Soon, they discovered a pool with strange white algae and a flashlight, indicating that humans had been there before. Not far away, there was a narrow passage just wide enough for one person, but as soon as they squeezed through, they encountered a pile of mutated scorpions. Just as they were about to be attacked, he hurriedly used a flare to drive them away. The heat disturbed a monster deep in the cave, which dragged Jack into the cave. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and cut off the monster's fingers, narrowly escaping. His teammates immediately rescued him and brought him back to camp, where his wounds were startling. To prevent infection, his teammates immediately administered an antibiotic injection. Catherine began studying the monster's finger. After a brief analysis, they found it to be a species of carnivore never before discovered by humans. It was also filled with parasites, similar to those found in mole rats under a microscope, suggesting that all creatures in the cave might be infected with this parasite. Not wanting to waste time, they prepared to continue looking for a way out, unaware of the terrifying presence lurking in the shadows, considering them prey. Along the way, they saw a human leg bone with claw marks, indicating their situation was indeed dire. After climbing a cliff, they found another pool. Jack used a light board to check the depth of the pool. However, the photographer was too focused on filming to notice Jack suddenly lose control and rage, throwing the camera into the water. Afterwards, Jack realized his mistake and immediately apologized to his teammates, shaking hands in reconciliation. But the camera falling into the water led Jack to conclude there were currents beneath, suggesting a rest for half an hour before continuing to dive forward. Just as they sat down, Jack experienced a convulsion, followed by a brief period of pain, after which his body seemed to undergo subtle changes. His hearing and smell were qualitatively enhanced, and his teammates' whispers echoed as if right next to him. They discussed Jack's changes, suggesting his emotional instability due to infection made him unfit to continue leading. Only Top and his brother Tyler remained unwavering in their trust in him. Tyler came to comfort him, expressing concern for Jack's condition. Jack did not say much, only telling Tyler that trusting him was their only way out alive. Then they prepared again and dived into the water, with the lurking monster ready to strike. Following the current, they finally found a fast-flowing underground river. The team hesitated to proceed, but Jack was adamant that following the flow was their only way out. Top showed his trust in Jack through action, and the others had no choice but to follow. But as Catherine was about to start, something in the water seemed to grab her leg. Dr. Nikolai also broke his leg in the turbulent water and was lying beside a rock, calling for help. However, the current was too strong for the teammates to assist, and one by one, they fell from the waterfall. Fortunately, Catherine also made it, having luckily escaped the unidentified creature, and immediately informed her teammates of the situation. Soon, someone lit a flare, and everyone regrouped safely, just as Nikolai fell from above with a broken leg. Unfortunately, the unseen creature lurking in the shadows also leaped down, and Nikolai was dragged into the water. Following the trail of blood, Jack saw Nikolai being pulled into a crevice by the monster. Clearly visible was a tattoo entering the monster's wrist. Jack didn't know what it meant, but as viewers, it's not hard to notice that this tattoo is identical to the one on the wrist of a member of an expedition team that broke in 30 years ago. The team lost another member. Catherine blamed everything on Jack, but Jack, uninterested in arguing, continued to lead the group forward. Finally, they arrived at a shallow bank, now faced with a choice, to continue drifting with the current or to climb up the cliffs on the shallow bank. Catherine and Briggs thought following the current would surely lead to an exit, but Jack, after scouting, determined through his mutated hearing and smell that there were monsters lying in ambush ahead, telling everyone climbing was the only way out. No one objected, but Jack avoided letting the best climber, Charlie, scout ahead, instead sending his own brother. This left Charlie a bit unhappy. Meanwhile, Catherine questioned Jack's judgment in secret, telling Tyler that Jack had lost his basic decision-making ability and was no longer fit to lead. Unnoticed by all, Charlie had quietly climbed up the cliff during their discussion. Indeed, she was skilled, treating the 90-degree cliff as flat ground, easily climbing to a cave on the cliff. She reported feeling airflow from above, encouraging the team below to start climbing. Charlie intended to use a flashlight to scout ahead, unaware that the light would awaken a sleeping monster. Startled, Charlie fell off the cliff during her retreat. Fortunately, her safety measures, including a safety rope, saved her life. Regaining her senses, she saw the monster slowly approaching and immediately tried to swing to another cliff, but the rope was too short. With the monster close behind, she had no choice but to fire at it with her flamethrower attached to her waist. Taking the opportunity, she leaped again, cutting the rope mid-air to successfully reach the other side of the cliff. Just when she thought she was safe, the monster, surprisingly capable of flight, pursued her. Charlie pulled out a dagger, and after a desperate struggle, managed to turn around. She sliced through the monster's wings with her dagger, then completely knocked it down with her flamethrower. Though she defeated the monster, the intense battle left Charlie severely injured, leading to her immediate death. Jack quickly retrieved her body, and the team fell into silence. He encouraged them to move forward, as there was no other way to survive. At that moment, everyone noticed Jack's pupils had turned into a cross shape, and his complexion was pale with purple around his eyes, clear signs of infection and mutation. Catherine, a biologist, could not sit idly by, questioning whether Jack's mind was controlled by the parasite, possibly leading them to the monster's lair as food. Faced with everyone's doubts, Jack chose to remain silent, letting everyone freely choose their sides. Those who trusted him followed, including Top and his brother Tyler, because in every dire situation during their years of exploration, it was Jack who had led them to safety. The rest decided to find their own way by following the stream, quickly climbing to the cave entrance. As they delved deeper, the temperature dropped to freezing, revealing an icy chasm deep within the cave. The three began to explore downward, with Top leading to ensure safety, followed by Tyler. An accidental slip caused a gas cylinder to fall and hit Top, who was below, causing him to fall and fracture a bone. They followed down to help, unexpectedly discovering a passage emitting a faint methane smell after the cylinder broke through the ice layer. Following the passage, they arrived at a vast cave with a central pool, continuously emitting cold water and faint light, indicating a connection to the outside world. Suddenly, Jack's body began to move uncontrollably, his consciousness being subtly taken over by the parasite. Decisively, he instructed the others to go ahead while he went back for the three who had left. Tyler, knowing his brother was prepared for death, refused to leave and went to find the three himself. At this time, Catherine and the others were in a dire situation, not only failing to find an exit but also walking into an ambush set by monsters. Briggs had already fallen victim to a brutal attack. By the time Tyler found him, all that was left were splatters of blood. Looking up, he saw Briggs horrifically nailed to the bottom of the pit, his gaze telling Tyler that ambushes were common here. It turned out the monster had used him as bait to lure others in. Tyler ran for his life, but the monster, familiar with the terrain, appeared in front of Tyler in no time. At the critical moment, a strange sound echoed through the cave, and the monster vanished instantly. Catherine appeared, holding a sonar gun, explaining that the sound waves it emitted could temporarily scare the monster away. Tyler mentioned they had found an exit, making Catherine realize they had wrongly accused Jack. On their way back to the exit, they were lucky to encounter a photographer, and the group of five successfully regrouped. But by then, their presence was fully exposed, with flying monsters lurking all over the cave ceiling. Moreover, one of the monsters had stolen their oxygen tanks just after Tyler had left. Now, with only one tank left, there wasn't enough oxygen to support everyone's escape. The oxygen tank was placed on a pillar as bait, and they had no choice but to proceed with the risk. Jack told them to head towards the pool while he went to retrieve the oxygen tank. The monster's vision was severely degraded, and the fog in the area hindered the sound waves, making them less likely to be detected if they didn't make too much noise. However, an accident occurred when the injured Top slipped, alerting the monster to their position. The photographer covered their retreat with the sonar gun, but the monster was smart. It dared not approach the sonar gun but furiously slammed into the cave ceiling, causing rocks to fall. The photographer couldn't dodge in time and was impaled on the ground, beyond help from his teammates. By then, the photographer had become food for the monster. It was the same monster with tattoos. Now without the sonar gun, more monsters gathered around the sweet water. Top and Catherine had no choice but to hide underwater, but the monster had already locked onto their approximate location. Top decided to take the initiative, and Tyler perfectly coordinated to slit the monster's throat from behind. Jack had already climbed up the pillar, turned around to kill the pursuing monster, and then threw the oxygen tank to Tyler. He then started to attract the monster's attention because Catherine had said that those infected and mutated could not adapt to the outside environment and had to stay underground. He decided to stay behind, lighting a flare and putting it into a propeller before throwing it down. The explosion ignited the methane in the cave. The three had no choice but to dive into the water as a monster flew towards Jack. Jack, holding a dagger, lunged at the monster, ready to perish together. The explosion intensified, and with no hope of taking Jack with them, the three swam towards the light source. Just as Jack had predicted, this was indeed the exit. However, the story did not end there. A few days later, the three reunited on the street. After saying goodbye to Top, Tyler expressed his sorrow. Few of his longtime adventure teammates remained. Catherine reached out to comfort him, revealing a wound on her arm. Tyler once again asked Catherine if the creatures from the cave truly couldn't adapt to the surface environment. Catherine initially thought so, but now she had thoroughly understood these creatures. They were not confined to living in the darkness underground. On the contrary, they were eager to come to the surface. Seeing Catherine's pupils, Tyler sensed something was wrong. By the time he chased after her, Catherine had vanished. The parasitic worms, imprisoned for countless years, had blended into society unbeknownst to everyone, leaving behind endless suspense and shivers.